All right, so we are going to do 5-7 today, the quadratic formula. Our objectives here are to solve quadratic equations, which we've been doing, but we're going to use this quadratic formula today, and to solve some real-world applications using the quadratic equation. All right, so first of all, the quadratic formula is if ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where a, b, and c are all elements of real numbers. Then this is the quadratic formula right here. We're going to plug numbers in to this formula. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. This can be used to quickly solve any quadratic equation. Okay, but we do have a few steps that we have to do. Okay, we have to write the equation in that standard form, that ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Substitute the values into the quadratic formula, and then simplify that quadratic formula. Okay, that's how we're going to solve this. So let's get started with example 1, where we have several of them. Okay, so again, I'll put it up there. I was trying to get the equation in there too, but I can't fit it all in. So we've got example A, x squared plus 4 equals 5x. It's not in that standard form. We've got to get the 5x back on this side. So that's why I subtracted 5x. So now we have x squared minus 5x plus 4 equals 0. We have standard form. So we can go through and pick out our values for A, B, and C. A is 1, because it's the number in front of the x. B is the negative 5. And C is our positive 4. Okay. Then once we have those, we can plug them into our equation that we need to use. Okay, so we have, remember our equation is x equals, it's right above here, but you can't, I can't see it up here, so I'm going to write it, negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. Okay, so that's exactly what's happening that I've done next. So I have negative, and this is then my b is negative 5, plus or minus the square root of negative 5. That's my b. Minus 4 times 1 times 4. And we solve it all out, and we have all the things. Okay, let's actually do that to b. We'll look at the example we have in A, but let's actually do it in B so we can see how it goes. And we have the answer over there. So same thing, this 11 has to go over here. So we're going to subtract 11. So then we have 4x squared plus 12x minus 11 equals 0. All right, now we can identify all of the parts. So A equals 4. Our B value is the positive 12. And our C value is the negative 11. Okay, so we take these and we sub them into this equation to solve for x. Okay, so x is going to equal negative b, so negative 12. Oh, sorry. I wrote the negative twice. So I wrote the negative, let's go back, so it's negative, and then my b is 12. Plus or minus the square root of b, so b is 12, squared, minus 4 times a, which is 4, times c, which is negative 11, all divided by 2 times a, which is 4. All right, so we're going to come down here and do some work. So x equals negative 12 plus or minus the square root of 12 squared is 144 minus 4 times, let's see, so we've got a negative times a negative. That's going to make this a positive. 4 times 4 is 16. And 16 times 11, let me do some math here. 16 times 11 is 176. Okay, all divided by 2 times 4 is 8. All right, so then x is going to equal negative 12 plus or minus 144 plus 176 equals 320. So equals the square root of 320 divided by 8. Let's see then. So we have kind of like yesterday, we need to look at our 320 to find out about to simplify this. So if I divide by 2, I'm going to have 160, right? Divide by 2 is going to give me 80. Divide by 2 is 40. Divide by 2 is 20. Divide by 2 is 10. Divide by 2 is 5. All right, let's see how many pairs I have. So I have 2, 4. Okay, so 2 times 2. Okay, so let's see. This is going to be equal to negative 12 plus or minus 2 times 2 times 2 times the square root of 5, okay, divided by 8. Okay, so x equals negative 12 plus or minus 2 times 2 times 2 is 8 times the square root of 5 divided by 8. Okay, so we're going to simplify that. So negative 12 divided by 8. So just like yesterday when we worked, right, we have to divide each part of this by 8. So negative 12 divided by 8 is going to simplify to be negative 3 over 2. Okay, and then plus or minus. Then we're going to do the 8 times the square root of 5. The 8s would cancel, so that would just leave us plus or minus the square root of 5. Okay, so I'm just going to write it as that x equals negative 3 halves plus or minus the square root of 5. So I'm going to stop there with that answer. You could put that in the calculator and take it to the next step, but I am trying to save some time, so hopefully you guys have time to work on these, maybe together in class to work on the practice. Okay, so again, it's using those skills we've been working on, like with using a square root, using the squared, keeping our numbers organized. That's why it's so important to show your work. But the formula, the quadratic formula, is going to make it easier. All right, so let's flip to the back. Okay, example 3 says to solve x squared minus 10x plus 29 equals 0 and check your solutions. Okay, so we'll actually look at maybe checking some of those. But let's go through and identify our a equals, it's the number in front of your x squared, so that's 1. B equals, that's the number in front of your linear variable, so negative 10. And our c is our constant, which is 29. Okay, so we might have some rather large, ugly numbers, but that's okay. And our formula is x equals, what is it? Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. So these are the numbers we're plugging in. All right, so x equals negative, and our b is negative 10. So negative, and then a negative 10 in there. Plus or minus the square root of b squared. So negative 10 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is, good, 29. All divided by 2 times a, which is, excellent, 1. Okay. So then, negative times a negative 10 is just a 10, plus or minus the square root of negative 10 squared is 100. Let's see, minus 4 times 1 times 29 is 116. All divided by 2. Okay, I'm running out of room, so I'm going to go ahead and go sideways with this. So that equals 10 plus or minus the square root of 100 minus 116 is going to give me a negative 16. All divided by 2. Okay. All right, so let me bring that down to the next part. So we have this divided by 2, so we're going to divide each part here. So we're going to have x equals 10 divided by 2 is 5. All right, plus or minus. Okay, the square root of negative, we might have should have done some extra work before. Okay, the square root of negative 16. So let's look at this. We have a negative, so we need to pull the I out. Okay, the square root of 16 then is 4, so this is 4i. That's a rough looking 4. So this is 4i. So 4i divided by 2 is 2i. So 5 plus or minus 2i. Okay, is what we're looking at. All right, so we're going to scratch the check your solutions part for right now. Again, trying to save you guys some time so you have time to work on it. But again, plugging the numbers in, using what we've learned about imaginary numbers, complex numbers, what we've been working on with square root, all to do that. So let's see. Since it has been a struggle with some of these, let's actually ignore the word problem as well. We'll go over that when I'm back in class. Let's look at another problem instead. So let's see, your homework's supposed to start with number 1 through 9. Let's do 11 on your homework instead. Okay, so let's go, let's look at number 11. On your book. So that's going to be page 215, number 11 instead, if you want to pull it up, but you don't have to. So we're going to have 4r squared minus 3r plus 2 equals 0. All right, so our A is 4, our B is negative 3, our C is 2. All right. So then we are ready to plug this into our equation. So we're going to have r this time equals negative 3 is our b value. Okay, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so negative 3 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 4, times c, which is 2. Divided by 2 times a, which is 4. Okay, so then r equals a negative times a negative 3 is a positive 3, plus or minus. Negative 3 squared is 9, minus 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 2 is 32. All divided by 2 times 4, which is 8. Okay, I'm going to go to the right and keep working. So we've got 3 plus or minus 9 minus 32 is going to give us the square root of negative 23 divided by 8. All right, well, 23 is a prime number, but it has that negative underneath there. So remember, that's going to be equivalent to I. So R is going to equal 3 plus or minus I times the square root of 23 divided by 8. Okay. Again, both of these parts are being divided by 8, so we can separate them. So this is going to be r equals 3/8 plus or minus. And then our next one, we're going to do this one. And so it's going to be the square root of 23/8. And we can bring that I out to the outside like we talked about yesterday in class, is how you're going to see it in your answer key. If you write it as r equals 3/8 plus or minus I times the square root of 23/8, that is also perfectly fine. I would take either of those forms, okay? Does not matter. But again, if you memorize the formula, the quadratic formula, you're just plugging the numbers in every time. So, see what you can do there with your homework. I actually am going to leave you a worksheet, kind of like I had you do yesterday. I'm going to leave you a worksheet to do. So kind of disregard the homework on the top right corner and work on the worksheet.